Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Shawshank Redemption. We saw this touring production at Derby Theatre on the 13th of September 2022. Based on the 1982 novella by Stephen King, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, the play examines desperation, injustice, friendship and hope behind the claustrophobic bars of a maximum security facility. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Despite protests of his innocence, Andy Dufresne is handed a double life sentence for the brutal murder of his wife and her lover. Incarcerated at the notorious Shawshank facility, he quickly learns that no one can survive alone. Andy strikes up an unlikely friendship with the prison fixer Red, and things take a slight turn for the better. However, when Warden Stammers decides to bully Andy into subservience and exploit his talents for accountancy, a desperate plan is quietly hatched.
But first, our post-show opinion!
Do I really have to review this?
Ooh, naked men. Yum, yum, yum.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene. So we're sat here on a wet, very wet and miserable Friday with a cup of coffee in our hand, and we're going to talk about the Shawshank Redemption. Now, Richard, the set. Would you like to describe the set?
When you walked into Derby Theatre, you had a curtain shut. There was no vision of what the stage would look like when you sat
peeping.
down. No peeping, no looking. But then when the curtain raised, you were basically presented with the inner workings of a prison, as in the communal area, really. It was
like an old-fashioned prison, wasn't it?
It was a proper sort of dank and dark and dreary prison, where very low lit and very rough around the edges. Which also doubled up for the courtyard and the other rooms when they brought different items to set on. So like,
well, that's it. The centre of it was a multiple of locations.
Yeah.
The individual cells to the library to the canteen, like you say, to the outside, and even like when they were tarmacking the ceiling.
Yeah. It had the
ceiling,
floor.
the roof. Tarmacking the roof.
Have
you ever tarmacked a ceiling?
Have you tarmacked a roof before?
No, but I'm guessing if you're doing tarmac, you don't want to be doing it upside down, do you?
No, you don't. No, it wouldn't stick, would it? It'd take a long time.
Burn you if it dropped on. Mind you, some people like that, don't they?
Yeah, some people pay for that.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. So really, that's quite a simple set. Everything was self-contained.
Yeah, which means also what you actually end up with is it leaves the actors bare to actually perform without relying on the set. And I think
you're struggling.
I'm struggling. And when I say bare, when the curtains opened.
Oh yes, the first minute.
The first minute was probably the best minute of the whole performance, I think.
Yeah, so three guys just in the buff.
New inmates, basically.
Yeah, with their...
They'd had all their worldly belongings taken away.
Was it in a box? They were holding a box and
they'd
or was
got
it
clothes.
piled...
Piles of clothes.
Were they piles of clothes on boxes, or am I just
I think it was just a pile of clothes and a little box underneath it or something.
In front of the genitalia?
Yeah. Just to hide everything. But it was basically to show that they'd had all their worldly belongings taken away and they were given standard issue prison attire.
And then they went to go get changed for the next scene. I wonder why they did that.
Probably just to show that they're newly inmates and that's the start of...
No, I mean, I wonder why they bother getting changed. I would have just carried on with them without any clothes on. I mean, that would have been
a better production in a way.
That would have made it a little bit more enjoyable to sit through.
I mean, it might have made sense. Sorry.
So there we are.
That's our discussion of Shawshank Redemption.
Short and sweet, but that's basically the set that we had.
Yeah, and there was
tables
and
from
chairs
Bad Girls, and that's what you get.
Yeah, and there was tables and chairs, trolleys. There was the
usual
standard
paraphernalia.
Yeah, the usual
setup.
Stuff, you know.
Yeah. So this is based on. Is it based on the film that's adapted from the short story? I think it is, isn't it? That's what they're saying. Stephen King's novel, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Yes. Right. So, what do we think about the directing? Should we go directing first? Yeah.
Let's do directing. Let's go in there. Let's go in deep.
Right. To start with, I'm afraid I have probably a few complaints. The fight scenes were very lackluster. It was
There was definitely no fight director.
No, well, the thing is, if you got punched, you expect a sort of reaction in as to the area of where somebody got hurt. So if I punch you in the stomach, I expect you to
there was better
cowl
slapping
over.
scenes in Dallas than this.
Hey, don't mock Dallas.
No, as in, Dallas was meant to be campy and effective, and it worked. Whereas this
wasn't camp at all.
There was no.
But this wasn't even like gritty or realism here.
I just don't feel like there was any. There was no power to the fights, or
there wasn't at all, and that's what
and that
was
then made it flat because
yes.
You're in a prison, it'd be no holes barred. The prison guards would look away when certain fights happened. They didn't, in those days, they didn't break things up. They let them carry on because one inmate less would be a blessing to them sometimes.
But in terms of the direction, so how everything was laid out, well, how the actors moved across the set, really, I thought it was adequately okay. It was just the fight scenes that seemed to be a bit unnatural and just fake. They weren't like realistic fight scenes that were believable.
Power to the performance.
No,
they added no. There was no sense of anger or there was no sense of fight in any of them. And
in fact, the whole energy of the cast just felt really low and. Yeah, I wonder if they've been told off and they were just like, "Oh, let's just get through this." It's only
I don't know if they've been told to hold on to the words too long, as they were performing just to savour the moment, and they savoured it too much. I think there was a lot of too many dramatic pauses, or I don't quite understand the direction the actual director went on to tell them to slow the pace down almost, because there was a lot of, I'll say one thing, then you say the other, then I'll say one thing and I'll wait, and then you say the other, and it felt and then you just got lost as you sat watching it.
It did feel a bit stilted, and even in the recreational area when they all either ate dinner or played or whatever was like played cards or whatever they were doing. There was no like a build up of energy and fighting and squabbling.
It didn't feel intense. It didn't feel on edge.
There was like a little bit, but it, like you said, it was very much. Oh, I'm going to say this line, then I'm going to wait for you to reply, and then I'm going to say my line instead of like either over speaking or that group.
Yeah.
Energy. It was just none of that.
It was a production that was very acted rather than the actors becoming the characters, and I think that's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, they weren't very reactionary.
No, it was like the lines were being delivered, and that's pretty much all they were being done. They weren't actually being used to fire up the strength of the performance.
Which is extremely sad in a way, because I was looking forward to seeing this because, quite like the film. It's a good story. Now, the production we saw was the one on tour in 2022. We've seen that there's been a previous production of this with perhaps some actors that have been in the one previously, but it was done at the Leicestershire Curve. But it was the same set, so only like a year later. So the one last year at Leicestershire Curve is Paul Nicholls, and I'm sure that's Jim Fenner from Bad Girls in there. But whether that was the same kind of energy or director, I'm not quite sure. But this,
we can't. It's hard to compare with that one when we don't see. We're just looking at the images because we weren't allowed to take a photo of the stage as it originally started. But I do feel that as good as the actors may be individually or in other things, I just question how it was directed and how it was put together, because I just felt like it felt like we were padding for time. I felt like we were slowing it down so it lasted 2 hours.
Yes, and there was a scene in the main character's cell where the bed was flat out in front of the audience.
Yeah.
And so when they sat on it staring at the Rita Hayworth poster, it was like their backs were towards the audience. That would be the place where he's digging the hole behind the poster.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand why the bed wasn't sort of up against it, protruding out, so they could sit either side, or one could be stood one side, looking in the Bible or whatever that he was doing in that scene, and the other one could be sat...
And put the bed with the back onto the hole, because then it's even more hidden.
Exactly, and you could actually see them interact that way. That was one little thing I just didn't understand, because we understood it was a cell, so why did it have to be lengthways instead of
and I just
coming out into the audience?
I think for me, I just felt that all the elements were there, they were being used, but
I thought we were being used.
Well, but I thought we were being almost just sat there thinking that is this really a good performance? I was just questioning. It got boring.
Yes, because if you'd rather actually watch the film again than see a stage version, then why bother even try to put it on unless you're going to bring something and add to that world?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I was personally counting the rivets and the screws on the set because it was almost like watching paint dry at certain points. It just felt flat, and I
was bored myself, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and I think it's a true thing of expecting quite a bit because of it's being a translation from a film to the stage, and the media looks good for it. It looks right. They've got done a lot of work, but I did feel a little patronised as a theatre goer that you've still got to make the production worthy of an audience.
Yeah, it just felt like you were crawling towards the end.
Yeah.
Literally with your nails, just trying to get to the very end of the play just to get out.
It's like you almost knew what was happening. There was no... It's just the intensity. I think I know I've said that before and I know I'll say it again. It's just... It felt like there was no build. There was no... We'd got... you got the people that ran the prison, as in like the inmates that controlled everything, and they didn't seem to have the power. And and like you say with the fight scenes, it just didn't feel strong enough. It didn't feel, because you only need the suggestion, but I don't feel like their faces reacted. It's not always about the physicality. It's about the physical movement of the face to show the anger or the aggression and I felt like they just went through the motions rather than just doing
Well, it should be exciting as an actor. Once you get out onto that stage, it should be alight and it should be electrifying, and you should be there giving it your very all. Yeah. And they all felt like walking zombies. Yeah, I don't know about you, but it was just...
Because it's like when the guy tried to set himself alight with petrol.
Oh, yeah.
It still didn't feel... It felt laboured.
Were you going to get the bellows out and egg him on?
Well, not just that.
Burn.
I mean, to be fair...
Get a bit of drama
petrol
in the show.
fumes travel more than more than the actual petrol itself, and he was stood there for a long time with that light lit. He'd have gone up.
Well, he was slowly trying to get his words out.
Well, there we go. Slowly. We're doing a lot of slowly stretching it out, make it last. But I think they're the things that you've...
And he was one of the good ones.
He didn't like go, oh, he's on a ladder, and it's all... He didn't feel like that. It was like, oh, he's got on a ladder.
Yeah.
And he stood there on a ladder. It didn't feel like, oh, he might burn himself to death. It didn't... There was none of the, like, panic. Or the rest of the cast didn't panic.
Yeah.
And that's what fuels it.
I think that's a little bit, but it wasn't enough.
No.
I mean, the dialogue was there. Oh, don't do it.
Yeah,
but then there was nothing else. Oh, it was tedious.
And I will say this, and somebody else who I went to see it with actually said this, Catherine, that if this was an amateur performance, it would be ripped apart.
Yeah.
If this was an amateur stage performance or show, they wouldn't have held back. A reviewer wouldn't have held back, but because it's a Ken Wright production...
Well, that's it. You expect it to be amazing.
Yeah,
you expect it to be... you expect the quality, at least, to be up there with the best, like Blood Brothers and...
Yeah, you expect a level of performanceship that I don't feel we got. I don't feel we got at all.
No, I mean, it was halfway there with the set and the script. Let's talk about the writing, actually.
Yeah.
Because I felt there wasn't anything necessarily bad that stood out like it shouldn't be in there. Like a couple of plays we've seen and reviewed, there wasn't anything that I felt didn't feel right within that moment. It all told the story. It all carried on. We all followed the narrative of the two lead characters.
The narrator was within that to speed the story along. But I just think this is a typical thing of page to stage where the words are there but the pace wasn't there, so you may as well just throw the script in the bin because it just didn't feel...
Do you think they slowed the pace down to be indicative of the movie?
Yeah, and intense.
How Morgan Freeman would deliver his lines very slowly and brooding,
which is fine if the other person cuts in quickly or progresses the feel of the production. It felt like there was no light and shade, there was no ups and downs. It was like maybe what they should have done is held back for his narrated pieces to be the slow pieces and everybody else just act properly and perform it.
Yeah.
And I think what they did, they applied it to everything, and that didn't create a gripping piece of theatre because on the cutting room floor when you're making a film you can cut out all the gaps.
Yeah.
Whereas in this you can't. You've got to be tight. An audience aren't silly. They're not stupid. They know what, if they come to see something like this, they expect, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely lost in it. But
maybe we are wrong, because at the end of the day, everyone gave a standing ovation.
And I still can't understand why.
And I think there was only 4 of us that actually didn't, that went to see it.
Yeah, but...
And it's like, really? For this?
I mean, it may be that it was 2 for 1 tickets that night.
Oh, maybe.
So, that might have been a little
A lot
swayer.
of people came in drunk and arrived about 5 minutes late, carrying McDonald's and stuff.
I mean, I don't think...
What is that about?
I don't know.
You go to see a show, it starts at past, but it was already ticking on a bit later on than that anyway, and they come in late with McDonald's.
I'll be honest, Stephen, I'm glad I wasn't drunk. Because I might have said what I thought in the room.
Oh, they were going to say you might have ordered off Just Eat or something.
Well, I could have done that, actually. A pizza would have been quite nice.
There are delivery services
it might have got me through the second half.
Yeah. So, do you know what we're here for? We're
here for the drama.
Stephen, what drama?
Yes, exactly. What drama? You may ask that, Richard. What drama?
That's the question I'm still asking about this production.
What is it?
What
is it about these films to stage that just seem to be a bit lackluster just lately?
I feel like they're relying on the movie being good and
just selling tickets
because the name sells them. But then the actual production doesn't make you want to go back for more. And it also questions, if you see that theatre company, do you want to take a risk on another production? Because I certainly want to pay for an expensive ticket. I certainly wouldn't want to pay for something to go and see it. If I'd struggle.
Yeah.
I'd hope, but I think there's been quite a few recently that we've seen that have been translated from films to stage, and
they don't always work.
Don't work sometimes, and some really work.
Now let's talk about the cast. I thought there were some good performances there, but I have to admit there wasn't any standout performances. I think probably never got a programme, so I don't know the cast. The standout one for me is the actor playing Red, Ben Onwukwe.
Yeah, I think the one that stood out for me was... I don't think any stood out for me, to be fair. I mean, I'd go with you on Red, purely because he was the glue throughout it, but maybe he was trying and everybody else wasn't,
Was it Brooksy, the librarian, the one who tried to set fire to himself when he got released, or was going to be released?
Yes.
Was it Brooksy? Yeah. Kenneth J, I felt he gave a strong performance.
Yeah, he did. No, he did. It was
but none of them, I thought, because of all the energy was low, it was difficult to give a particular shout out to any of them because it was just so low. And even Joe Absalom, who played Andy Dufresne, he looked right for the part.
Yeah, he did.
And he had it all there. But when it, like we discussed, when it came to the fight scenes, it was a bit hit and miss and wishy-washy. And it just wasn't strong enough, and I'm not even sure the accents were all spot on either.
I'm not.
I don't know if they all came from the same place or a different
Joe,
place.
I felt like he's probably so used to acting on film or recordings or serials or being filmed in a television studio where it's always a stop-start performance, so you can say your lines, do one scene, stop, move to the next. Say your lines, stop, do to the next. And that's what I felt like this was. The whole performance for everybody felt a little bit stop-start.
I kind of agree with that, but I think he would have done stage after EastEnders anyway, because I don't know if he's done any more film acting other than EastEnders. Then maybe I think there was a comedy afterwards. I can't quite remember.
No, and I mean, one thing I would say is...
That was you're talking 90s now.
Yeah, I might be, but I think one of the things I'd probably say is there's only so much one actor can do to get the rest to go along with it.
Yeah.
So, as much as each of them try, if the others aren't pushing it on or moving it on, it's really difficult to move any faster than the rest. And it's and I think it's a combination of direction and actors, because maybe there's the 2 or 3 of them tried really hard to do it, but everybody else pulled them back a bit, and it's difficult.
Do you think maybe we were just having a bad day?
No.
Do you think maybe they were on it and we just didn't particularly enjoy this, but because everyone else did? Are we?
No, because
right?
I've seen a lot. I've seen some productions that are intense, full on, and have a similar narrative where you're fixed, and that's what I'd expected. I expected, because you're stuck in this prison cell. You're almost stuck in a prison cell. And it's like, I just didn't feel like there was an intenseness of struggle.
Do you think the intenseness and stuff comes when they're rushing or the pace has been picked up?
I think it's the pace or the I wouldn't. I think there was just too many pauses in between dialogue that slowed it down rather than gave it power, because it's all about a roller coaster, and I didn't feel like we were on any roller coaster. I felt it was like flatlining all the way through.
Well, it was on the teacups, but they weren't spinning.
They weren't spinning, and it just felt like, you know.
We're in the bumper cars being shunted without even.
We were in the bumper
moving.
cars with a sad face. Just somebody keeps ramming you from the side, and you just keep wobbling about. That's what it felt like. It was just. I mean, I saw a production by a Greek tragedy in Edinburgh Fringe, which was really strong, really powerful, and really intense. And it was a small cast, and that had more intensity than this. I felt like this just. I wasn't fixed. I had to stand up through that production for the whole production. When I saw Medea, I felt like I was in it, and this felt like it just felt like a wet lettuce compared to. You know.
Right, okay, so we went to see Ladies and Letters, and there was only 2 people in there, and they managed to have stage presence.
Exactly.
They made you listen, and
you followed them from one side to the other.
You paid attention, whereas there was a group of people here, and not one of them really.
You didn't focus in.
Yeah.
Even the narrator, when you should be fixed on what he's got to say because it's powerful, you just felt like, all right.
Yeah.
It just didn't. I think it just didn't feel gelled as a production as a whole.
Had they have added some not faster scenes, but mixed the pace up a bit, like you say, then maybe the energy would have sprouted from there.
I think for me, because like the fights felt flat in a fight scene. That normally would come out.
Play fighting.
They were, but for me, it comes out of nowhere. Those fights are those sort of builders that like they build, and then something snaps, and then it's like whack. And there was none of that. It just felt like, they're playing in the playground. It didn't feel. It felt like we were playing cowboys and Indians running around the playground. It didn't feel.
I was expecting Timmy
like
Mallet to come out.
Yeah, I didn't feel the.
It was a joke.
I didn't feel like there was the struggle that would be in a prison.
Now moving on to our next segment.
What the heck is this?
Now we're back in the Derby Theatre.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Blooming Lights. Did you see them? One of the lights that just keep wobbling. Well,
What
not
is
wobbling.
it about
it was
pendulum
dangling.
lights?
Yeah, that was it. Because it was there for when it was Little Voice.
Yeah, we've seen it in Red Allen, and that was Nottingham, but we've seen it in Red Allen.
But there was another show in Derby where it was just that one.
I did question some of the technical things where we winched a group of bookcase that kept coming up and down like a yo-yo, which had no purpose to be dropped in from above.
No, why would you do that?
There was nothing exciting about it.
You've got a small trolley there with your books on anyway on wheels. Why not just have a bookcase on wheels just wheeled in?
They were moving everything else in.
Well, having it come down from the rafters was a bit silly because it just started wobbling and getting a bit top heavy.
For me, if you're going to do something like that, take Blood Brothers, for example. They should have brought a whole wall in.
Yes, exactly.
That would have had more sense. It would have been a bookcase fixed or recessed into the wall, because in a prison, they don't like any sharp edges or things that people can be hurt or injured on. So they could have had a recessed bookcase in a wall that came down from the ceiling. Instead, we got this cheap IKEA metal bookcase, and it felt like it was swinging about like the lights, and it added nothing.
No.
It didn't have... It wasn't a scene change that felt like, we're in the library, like they did with the other scene when they were in the prison guard's office, the big wooden panel that came down.
Yeah,
they should have had another wall then brought the stage forward to then bring it into a different space. It just didn't. They didn't do that, and it just felt weird. It was
another thing that irritated me was when they were tarmacking the roof, not the ceiling. They never brought down another backdrop to make sure it looked like it was outside.
Exactly.
It looked like they were tarmacking the inside of a prison still, because all we saw was them inside the courtyard, basically.
It just felt a bit messy on the scene changes, where if you're going to do it for one thing, why haven't you done it for the others? Yeah. It's like, what's the point? Because those winches that they used for the bookcase could have easily been used for a wall, because they were used for the bookcase. So,
but if you were making all the drama be self-contained within the prison and not go outside the prison...
Exactly, you shouldn't have written the outside bit.
Then you needed to have it like a pressure cooker, have all the drama kick off, but because it was never kicking off really inside the prison, it didn't matter even if they did put down a flat screen to show outside, unless they were just trying not to do that to give away the particular ending,
but
which was a bit
felt, because for me, you know what would have worked even better if they'd have brought something down was the outside gates of the prison, or the wall of the outside of the building. like the exterior.
Yeah.
So it was in the prison like grounds almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just mentioned pressure cooker. You couldn't have mentioned it any better, because I think it was a pressure cooker with the lid off and no gas on, because there was no. That was it. That sums it up. There was no pressure.
No.
There was no build up. There was no steam. There was no
drama.
fire. There was no, and I think that says it all. Yeah, I mean, I suppose technically what I could say is it was a general cover production. There was not really anything lighting wise that was spectacular. They used a few spotlights on things just to highlight when certain aspects happened for the narrator and things like that, but they didn't really go over the top in that way, and I can't really remember many sound effects.
Let's just be honest, this was just a half-arsed production.
I was disappointed, really disappointed, because it could have been so much better. And who knows, the previous year's production of the same thing might have been so much more powerful.
Well, exactly, yes.
But how, I in a way, you wish you could go back in time, because, I just question who's watched this before they've allowed it to go out.
I can't imagine this. We'd have seen the same results with a previous cast at the Leicestershire Curve.
No.
I can only imagine it being better.
Exactly.
So if they've just changed all the actors,
or if they've got different directors to last
suitable.
time, or they haven't spoken to the previous, because for me to keep that consistency, you need to know how it was done before. To think Blood Brothers.
Yeah.
You can tell with Blood Brothers, there's a book that says this is how it's done, and you do it, and it works. This feels like nobody's spent enough care and attention on it. I just felt like they're not trying to recreate that feeling of being in that pressure cooker, in that prison, locked in that box. It didn't feel like that.
No.
So there we are.
Was there any faux pas?
I think when the curtain opened, to be honest.
No, we can't be too mean. We've got to see them, whether they're good or bad. It's just unfortunately we have to actually stay and sit through it when they are bad.
Yeah, I mean, they acted. I mean, they performed, and I just think I've seen better, and I've seen worse. But this was on a par with some of the bad ones that I've seen.
Right, let's cut to the review. Which bit would you see again? For me, it would be the first minute.
Yeah, I think the
And then
first
I'd walk
minute as
out.
well, and then I'd go to the toilet for a long time.
Doing what?
Well, I need a long wee.
Oh,
And then climb out the window at the back and get my car.
you could just go out the exit door.
Yeah, it's not as exciting. At least I'd have had more excitement trying to get out the bathroom window and escape like I was in a prison than while I was sitting on stage.
Well, you might have to take a spoon and start digging, because I don't think there's any windows in that toilet.
Have they got metal spoons anymore in Derby Theatre?
Probably not.
No.
It'd be even longer time
Recycling.
with plastic ones or wooden ones. So scores on the doors then, please, for Shawshank Redemption, Richard, with 10 being a great escape and 1 being stuck in a waste pipe and left to die. What are you going to give it?
I'll give it a 2 out of 10.
Oh,
Because there was some acting, there was some, there was moments of promise, but overall, I was just disappointed.
I'm giving it a 2. I'm annoyed you've gone for the same as me, even though
We didn't converse.
No, but the way you were getting really hecked off and wound up in the car on the way back, I thought you'd give it a lot lower number. Well, can you go a lot lower than 2?
Red Ellen.
No, there are 3 from me, I think.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Anyway. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I'll go for Tumbleweed, because the Tumbleweed moved faster than this production did.
And I'm going to go for an audible shrug of the shoulders. Because that's just how I feel. Not bothered this way or the other. What I would say is I wouldn't recommend this show.
And I definitely wouldn't go and see it again.
Not with the people involved. No, definitely not. Won't waste my time or money.
It's a no from me.
Next.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Shawshank Redemption. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing Mrs. Doubtfire,
The Book of Mormon.
and Jekyll and Hyde.
That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.